Welcome to the latest episode of the Blazing Musket Podcast. We're joined this week by Chris Belkey, president of the Bonanza, a Hartford athletic supporters group, and Oliver Scholes, who covers Hartford for the Blazing Musket. They're here this week to talk about the incredible turnaround in the last couple of months for Hartford Athletic. They are officially in the playoffs, looking at a first-round home game, and have lifted the club's first trophy, having won the 2025 Jägermeister Cup just a little bit more than a week ago now. It's an absolutely remarkable change in fortune, considering the club's struggles earlier this season, and really, for pretty much all of their history going back to when things got started. So Chris and Oliver are here to revel in all the happiness that has come to loyal Hartford followers, writers, and supporters over the last several years. So we thought for sure it is a good opportunity to focus in on just Hartford, who, if a team that if you've kind of overlooked for the last 6 or so years, I highly recommend getting down there. If the Revs are off that weekend or your team is away, definitely get down there and check them out. And what you heard on the intro here was a mix of commentary from the Cup final and fans watching the game close to midnight at a local bar down in Connecticut. So with all of that, Chris and Oliver, how are you guys doing? And have you been able to fully absorb what has transpired over the last couple of months?
Yeah, I don't know. It's almost it's quite surreal, based on how our history has gone. I mean, because I've been a member of the Bonanza from like day one, or what eventually turned into the Bonanza. But yeah, I mean, we've been day one. It's been a long struggle, and ended last year well, but started off this year poorly. But this run, the last like 3 or 4 months it's been awesome. It's awesome. I mean, like I said, it's pretty surreal that we're at this point where we've won a trophy and we have a legitimately good chance of winning another one. And past years, we just wanted to make the playoffs, but now, I mean, year 2 of the Brendan Burke project has come to fruition.
Yeah, it's surreal is definitely right. I think, I was not at the watch party. I was sitting at home on my couch watching the Cup final, and I don't know. I just didn't feel like it didn't sink in right away, right? Like Samuel Carragher scores, we go up 1-0, and I'm like, well, that's kind of fun. And like I wasn't feeling the reaction that I expected to feel, right? I expected to be like, oh my God, this is incredible. And then, 6 minutes, 9 minutes of stoppage time, whatever it was, whistle finally blows. And again, I was like, well, this is fun. And then like over the following, days, it kind of sank in. And I don't think, honestly, it was until this past Saturday, back at the stadium with all the fans again in the parking lot, and the vibe in the parking lot pregame before the league fixture against Sacramento was probably the best it's been in years. I mean, Chris, I don't know if you agree.
Definitely.
It felt like hasn't felt that way since maybe even 2019. When everything was brand new. And that's when it really sank in for me. That I was like, oh, this is awesome, and everybody's happy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone did feel happy. It was great seeing everyone at the tailgate and the stadium packed and everyone happy, and even happier, we won the game too. So yeah. So yeah.
No, I mean, this is the thing. Like, you're watching a Cup final. Look, maybe we should know this is coming. I'm a Tottenham supporter, and they won their first trophy since 2007, back in the spring, and it was kind of the same. I was watching on my couch, and I was like, "This isn't actually going to happen, is it? Like, where's the Come on, like they're gonna give up a goal. They're gonna, someone's gonna get sent off with a red card. Like, there's just no way that the whistle is gonna blow, and Tottenham is still gonna be ahead, because that would mean that they've accomplished something that they haven't. Like, was there? like at what point was there any point during that game where were you just kind of sitting there thinking to yourself, like, there's no way, there's like, come on, like they're on the road, Sacramento's really good, it's just this isn't actually going to happen, is it?
I think for me, it was maybe I don't know, second half of the first half, like the last 25 minutes of that first half, where Sacramento was really on the front foot. They were really finding a lot of joy coming down the left side of the Hartford defense. They had a couple of really good opportunities to score, to go ahead, and they didn't, but it felt like it was coming. It was just one of those moments where I think, thinking about like the longer history of Hartford Athletic here, which I know it's only like 7 years, not that long of history, but looking back, it just felt like this is the moment when this team gives up the goal. You go back to 2023 or previous years, whenever it felt like the opposition was really knocking on the door, they always came through. There were so rarely those games where they were able to fight through those moments where the other guys were on top and get something out of the game. And, as a supporter, you're kind of watching it and you're like, well, it's good. They got to the final. That feels nice, but Sacramento's a better team and they're going to prove it here. And then it didn't happen. You got to halftime and the scores were level. It was 0-0. And I will say, I thought at that point, I was like, maybe that's Sacramento's best shot. Maybe they gave us their best punch and we rolled with it and we can get something out of this game. And you don't fully believe it. Like, I didn't fully believe that. But I was thinking for a moment there, like, you take off your fan hat and you put on your analyst hat, right? I'm like looking at that, I'm like, if I was a neutral and I'm watching this game, I'd say Sacramento gave it a good shot and they didn't get anything. So Hartford's got a shot here now. And I don't know. I don't know if that was what people were thinking at the bar, Chris.
I was. Well, yeah, I was definitely worried. I had optimism going into it. However, I mean, even after Samuel Correga scored the goal, I'm like, okay, it's going to get to stoppage time. We're going to give up the goal like we've done God knows how many times in the past to tie the game and then send it to I think it goes straight to pens, and then we lose it. I kept waiting for it, and then with the 6 minutes of added time at the end, and then it ended up going to like 10 minutes. I'm like, okay, it's gonna happen. And they were like, Sacramento was just knocking on the door, and all the credit to the Hartford defense. They were just doing whatever they could to get in front of any shot and not let a good shot get off. And it really wasn't until the final whistle went where I could release a big sigh of relief and celebrate. And
the final clip there of the game, the ball barely gets out of Hartford's 18-yard box when the whistle goes. It's not like it was just kind of bouncing around in midfield, or it's like, okay, we just need to get it out of the penalty area long enough so this guy can blow the whistle and this whole thing can be over. It's got to be incredibly stressful, right? To how things have gone. It's like, okay, yeah, it's great to get to a cup final, but then at the same time, it's like, well, we got all the way here. We might not. Who knows? You never know when you're gonna. You never know when you're gonna get back there again, right? Like if you look at, you look at Rhode Island. They make a run all the way to the final last year, and it's like, well, that's not easy, right? It's not. You can't just turn around and just do that every year. It's a lot harder than that. But Oliver, like you said, I think we've seen so many games where a team does come out and has opportunities to go ahead, doesn't take them. And if you're a fan of that team, right? If you're a fan of Sacramento, I'm sure a lot of them were thinking at halftime, like, okay, well, we did have opportunities to take the lead, and we've not done it. And we've all seen so many times. You know how that goes, right? You dominate in the first half, you don't make anything happen, and it ends up kind of biting you in the second half, and you don't get a result. And not to skip ahead, but Saturday night, this past Saturday, they played Sacramento again, which was great. The announcer must have he must have referenced Hartford Athletic as the 2025 Jägermeister Cup champions like 5 times. I mean, it was hilarious. It's just great just to kind of stick it to them again. It was kind of the same thing in that game. First 15, 20 minutes, we were like, wow, Sacramento. I mean, they're pretty. The guy sitting next to me was like, these guys are pretty clearly out for revenge. They're pretty fired up. But the same thing, they didn't get that early goal with that early momentum, and then Hartford ends up taking the lead. But Oliver, they make it all the way to the Jägermeister Cup final. How did their Jägermeister Cup run go? Because I believe there was a point where nobody would have been thinking they're going to be the last team standing.
Yeah, it's funny because early in the season, the Jägermeister Cup was kind of the only thing that was going right for Hartford. They lost their first 5 league games. They get dumped out of the Open Cup by Portland, up in Lewiston. And then they win the first 2 games in the Jägermeister Cup group stage. They beat Portland at home. They beat Westchester on the road. And that was really like all they had to hang their hat on at that point in the season. And then they lost a penalty shootout the 3rd game to Detroit. And they went into the final group game needing some help, needing to win, right? And potentially needing some help on the other side of that as well. And they only got in as the second wildcard team because they were able to tie that game up. They got 2 more goals, which gave them the advantage over the other runners-up, and they got the bonus point for winning the penalty shootout in Rhode Island. And so it was really kind of fortunate. They had a little bit of momentum in the Cup early, and it felt like it had dissipated a little bit as they got to that last game. But they really fought through it. They got through, and I will say once they got into the knockout stages, they looked like the best team in all of their knockout games. They went to San Antonio, and they were completely in control of that game. They got Greenville at home, and they win 3-1. And I don't think that game was ultimately particularly close when you really go back and look at it. And when you dig into the performance in Sacramento, they were the better team on the night. It wasn't, kind of we got outshot 25-3 and grabbed a goal and smash and grab job. They were the better team. And so in some ways, I think the results in the Jägermeister Cup games early on were one of the things that really were a springboard for everything else that they've done, right? They had that thing to kind of be like, hey, we're still in the Cup. We've got the results. We could chase this silverware. The season isn't over, just because we've had this bad run in the league and, got dumped out of the Open Cup. And it all kind of fed on itself, but they really did, I think, need those early results in the Jägermeister Cup to kind of turn all of this around.
Chris, when you came on in July, that show came out on July 16th, which little did we know that your appearance on this podcast was going to spur the team onto a 3-month winning streak. But I mean, if you look at their form from July 16th on, it's incredible. So hopefully, I don't know if you've been, I don't know when the Chris Belkey statue is going to appear outside of the stadium. But you mentioned back in July that, okay, Jägermeister Cup, had gone okay. The league form had gotten off to, not a great start. But you would point out specifically that U.S. Open Cup loss, or you would say like, okay, come on, like we're getting bounced out of the Cup by a brand new team playing in the league below us, right? So like at that time, I mean, did you really have any expectation that, look, we struggle to beat a team that is still trying to find their identity from a lower league. Like, I mean, we're really going to go and, we're really going to go and go the whole way here.
Yeah. It was a rough start for the club. And at that match, at that July match, where we did the protest, they were struggling, and a lot of the things that we saw and were sort of into our protest sort of got corrected. Since then they added more players to get a lot more depth, which allowed Brendan Burke to rotate the squad. We got guys that were injured at the beginning of the year. They came back, and the team really started to gel around that time. And I mean, I don't know what it was, whether Brendan had a really good rah-rah talk in the locker room, or whether Jordan Scarlett, the captain, or Joe Farrell, or any of the other leaders of the team said, guys, we got to put this together. We're not doing well. We got bounced out of the Open Cup by a lower team. The fans aren't happy. Everyone else isn't happy. We got to do something. I mean, I don't know what it was, but whatever it is, I mean, it worked, and since then they've been on fire, and it really is crazy, the night and day of this team from around that date. Before then, night, and then afterwards, day. It's just they're a totally different team, and they have so much more confidence in themselves and play so much more as a team. It's awesome. It's awesome the way that they're playing now.
The thing too is that you all weren't just upset about this season. It was what is happening this season has repeated itself many times. Like, we just keep going through the same thing over, right? So I don't think it was, kind of this, hey, we're having a bad year. This is just not acceptable. It's like, we're now having what appears to be, a
another bad year.
Yeah, another bad year on top of all the other bad ones that we've had before. But Oliver, I mean, did you see kind of the same thing? Or the depth has been something that I think people have talked about with this team quite a bit. Is that whoever the coach has been, they just haven't had that many players to choose from. You go through, a tough stretch where you've got to play a couple midweek games, and that's, you get into the summer, guys start to get hurt, and it's, okay, well, that's it. Now I'm looking at guys to turn to, and there's no one there.
Yeah, I think, you looked at where this team was at the beginning of the season, and I think there were games where Hartford had maybe 14 professional players available, to pick from. And that's not going to get it done. That's not going to get it done in a Sunday league, right? There's no league in the history of soccer anywhere where you can regularly have 14 guys and get good results on a consistent basis. And some of that was injury, right? There were guys who were hurt. Some of that was Kyle Edwards or Emmanuel Samadia being on international duty. Some of it was some really unfortunate suspensions for really silly red cards. There were a lot of things that contributed to that. But ultimately, there just weren't enough guys on the roster to absorb any of those problems. And I will say, I think the results really turned around before the reinforcements came in, right? Brandenburg had these guys locked in and playing well and getting results. And then you saw some of these additions, Babakar and Jai, bringing in Haji Berry, even bringing in a backup goalkeeper, bringing in John Berner. Obviously has proved to be an incredible add, as he's had some great performances when NTCA has been unavailable. But the results were already coming before those guys arrived. And I think as I look back on this season, one of the things that strikes me about the early season performances compared to later is that sometimes when you're watching a team, you can see that they're 90% of the way there, but what they need to do requires them to be 100% of the way there. And when it's only 90% of the way there, it looks terrible. Because the guys aren't, the ball isn't there when a guy looks for it, or they don't make the right run, or, whatever it is. And early in the season, you were seeing that. They just weren't quite there. And it looked so bad because they weren't quite there. But when it locked in, it went from bad to good so quickly. The Loudoun game, I think, is the one that really stands out. I think that was the first game after the protest, Chris. And they put in the highest expected goals in the league since 2016, I think.
Right.
In a single game. It was 7.1 or something like that.
Yep.
And remember, this is a league that for years had teams of teenagers playing in it, right? Professionals playing against 17-year-old academy kids. And then Hartford goes out there and they blow out this professional team that is actually this season playing very well. And everyone is sort of where did that come from? And I think where it came from is they went from being kind of 90% of the way there to being 100% of the way there. And all of a sudden you could see when they make the right runs, when they're looking for the right ball, when they're doing all the things at 100% of what Brandenburg wants them to do, that's what this team can do. They just weren't 100% of the way there, and so it looked awful for 2 months.
Yeah. we were there Saturday night, and it's the first time I've been able to see them play in a little bit. I mean, it was great, but like you said, I mean the style is, they definitely try to make things happen pretty quickly when they're going down the field, and so yeah, if the guys that are need to be anticipating where the ball is going to go, if they're not making those runs, if they're not anticipating it, right, then you've got these center backs are playing long balls to nobody, and it's just like, well, what was that? Right, you just hit the 60-yard ball downfield, and there's no one within 20 yards of where it landed, right? Like, I think that type of style, it can become very obvious if guys aren't in tune, like compared to like how, like when the Revs struggled, they're just passing it around and like, it's just like this is, but with Hartford, it's like if it's going to happen, it's going to happen very quickly, and it only takes one guy to not make one run, and, then the whole thing falls apart, and then they'll just stand around looking at each other like, well, what the hell was that? And I think the amount that they want to press the ball is kind of the same thing. If one guy doesn't go and press the guy that he needs to press, the other team finds that player, and then they're out. And now you're up the field, and now you're exposed, and bad things tend to happen. I mean, there was a couple times in that game Saturday night where Sacramento started on a counterattack, and it was like, oh, this isn't looking too good. But they got, they got back, they did what they needed to do. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy, honestly, like how good they looked on Saturday night. They blew out, they give away a 2-goal lead, and then they find a late winner. I mean, Chris, to me, that strikes me as you're up 2-0. We actually went to try and beat the line for more beer and to go to the bathroom. And we came back in our seats during halftime. And we're like, oh, it's 2-1. Like, what happened? Like, we thought, oh, for sure it'll be 2-0 at halftime. It was 2-1. Then it's 2-2. Is that the type of game that Hartford Athletic in years past, or even maybe back this spring, you throw away a 2-goal lead? Is that just one of the, okay, when is Sacramento going to go ahead and score the winner here?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, that had been, we were expecting that in the past when we'd given up leads. We were expecting that late goal, but this year it seems that we're getting those late goals to win games. So I mean, I think now we have the confidence in the club that they're going to fight for those 90 plus minutes, and if it's tie or they're down a goal, they'll get the chances and hopefully put one in. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely the antithesis of past years. Giving up leads and then losing, or at worst, tying. I mean, giving up a lead, giving up points. Going from 3 points or only getting 1 point.
It's like a loss at home, right? Like,
right,
I mean,
right.
if you're up
and at
2-0,
home you can't do that.
Yeah, it feels like a loss for sure. Yeah. All right, so they go on, they win the cup. As great as that is, but at the same time, the league form has been incredible. Like I said, I mean, they're sitting in third place now, which is it's crazy. I mean, like, so what is so Oliver, I mean, what does the league form look like? They seem like they've kind of found their way both home and away.
Yeah, I mean, and particularly away, they've actually won 6 league games in a row on the road, which I think is tied for the second longest streak in the history of the USL Championship. And they're unbeaten on the road in, I think, 13 games in all competitions, including the Jägermeister Cup now. So they've really locked that in, which, again, like, Hartford has never done this. Even when we've been okay at home, even when they've got some good results at home, it's been, like, just getting blown out on the road. And that's the opposite. They are, honestly, if anything, they are better away from home at the moment than they are actually at Trinity Health Stadium. But really, I think, since that Loudoun game, which happened on, I think, the first day of summer, I think it was June 20th, they have had this just unbelievable league form. They were on, I think, like 5 points in the league going into that game, and they're on 44 points now. It's just they have nobody bar Louisville, I think, has played better in the league over that stretch. If they'd done this all season, they'd be competing with Louisville for the Players' Shield, right? Which Louisville, obviously wrapped up this past weekend. They've been the best team in the league. Obviously, they've earned that. But the way Hartford has played over since the end of June, over the last 4 months now, they've been as good as Louisville over that stretch. Now we'll see in a couple of weeks. We got to go to Louisville on the last day of the season, and that I think will be a really interesting test because I think Hartford will want to prove something, and Louisville will want to prove that they're still the big dogs, right? They're still the team to beat, So I think that could end up being a really entertaining game and a good barometer for Hartford of where they actually are in relation to, the Blue Bloods, the historically best team in this league.
It's been it's been pretty incredible. Chris, when we talked in July, we talked quite a bit about how, the people being willing to come out and continue to support this team. It was really becoming more and more of a challenge, or more and more. It's like, look, why should I continue to make the drive, to spend the money, to, why should I keep, putting myself out there just to be let down again. And the last game that I'd gone to, it was, I want to say it was back in June. I think it was the night that Jack B got hurt, actually. So it was back earlier on in the season. And then we went on Saturday night. It seemed to me like the attendance, and this is middle October. Summer's over, right? So the big summer numbers and all that's over now. It's middle of October, right? But I felt like it was a great crowd. I mean, for any time of the year. But the Bonanzas, the supporter section seemed to be filled out a little bit more than I remembered the last time. So it seems like things have kind of started to maybe turn back in that direction. But you're obviously over there. How has that been over the last couple of months? And are people starting to come around more and say, okay, you know what, they are giving us something to come out and cheer for?
Yeah, the supporter section has definitely gotten more full over the past couple months. I mean, for the people that were sort of on the borderline as to whether or not they were going to go to games, they're now wanting to go to games. Versus, well, they're going to lose again. I don't know. I mean, that's gone. I mean, at least for the time being. So yeah, I mean, it's been awesome. And I do have to admit, during like the summer or for a while, we had a lot of like Wednesday night games too. Those midweek games are tough for a lot of people to get out to. I mean, even if the kids are off school, but
you still have work. I mean, it's not easy. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Traffic. I mean, it's tough to get. It's tough for people to get out for the 7:00 games. So having the weekend games, the Saturday games, definitely helps. I mean, this past Saturday was our last quote unquote home game of the year. I'm sure I'm really hopeful that we'll have a playoff game. So hopefully we'll have another one in a couple weeks. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think a lot more people are coming out that maybe weren't 100% behind the team at the beginning of the year. And they're definitely 100% on board now. So it's awesome.
Do you think we talked about the communication from the team, like you all felt like you had an outlet in the past to at least give some feedback directly to the team, and that had kind of gone away. So how has that whole dynamic been over the last couple of months?
Oh yeah, I mean that's been night and day. Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been awesome. I mean, they've really reached out to us. We have a great relationship at this point with the front office. Usually, I mean, like this past Saturday after the game, I mean, a bunch of them came out, had a beer with us at the end of the game in the tailgate. So, I mean, it was awesome. And we've had those people, if an issue came up, we could contact and they would look into it and hopefully find a resolution. Or hopefully find a way where we could all be happy with what the final solution would be. So yeah, I mean the communication has been so much better since then.
That's definitely good to hear because I mean it's one of those things where you've had it in the past and then it goes away, and you know whether the team's doing good or whether the team is struggling. I think that just makes everybody feel a lot better. Look, at least there's someone coming out here that we can, is going to listen to our feedback and and see where it goes. And then Oliver, one of the other things that Chris and I talked about again was this, the team not having the depth that it needed. And I wonder, do you think part of it is that, the team has started to do better? Brendan Burke seems to have really figured out a winning formula. So do you think that was maybe in years past the team might have been able to take the attitude of, well, what do you want us to invest in? Or this guy doesn't really seem to have anything figured out. He can't get results when everyone's healthy. Why should we throw more money into this? Whereas this year, like you said, this turnaround started before the reinforcements came. So do you think maybe it was a belief in the coach that they maybe didn't have in the past?
I think the answer to that is yes. And I think it kind of goes back to why there was so much frustration, or one of the reasons there was so much frustration with the performances early in the season was because Brendan Burke was kind of like the last possible answer to this problem, right? Like, you've gone through, all these guys. Jimmy Nielsen was here, and he'd been a pretty competent USL championship coach. He couldn't get it done. You tried going the youth route with a guy in Harry Watling who had a lot of experience with younger players. That didn't work out. You bring in Top Ramos, whatever the wisdom of that was. It didn't produce the results, you wanted at the end of the day. And so this was, let's get a guy who is a proven winner in this league, who is one of the hottest coaching commodities in, the lower division. Let's bring him in and let's see if he can make it work. And it wasn't working. And I think so many fans were like, well, what do we do now? Like, we've shot the last shot. And I think for the front office, looking at that and saying, there isn't another answer. Like, if we get to the end of the season and Brendan Burke hasn't made it work and we decide we're going to part ways with Brendan Burke, like, there isn't another, hey guys, we've got a really clever idea to solve this problem. It's kind of over, right? In a really meaningful way. And so I think going all in on that, saying, all right, we're going to do it. We're going to, it looks like there's something happening here. We can see some results are coming in. We just sold Mamadou Dieng. We brought in, allegedly over $300,000 in an initial fee for this player. Like, let's put some of that money back into strengthening the squad. Let's bring in the guys we need that Brendan Burke says he needs to make this work over the rest of the season. And let's see if we can really capitalize on this, because there isn't really another option, right? What are we going to do?
Tried it all, right? Yeah.
Right. Wait for the next, wait for the next great opportunity, right? Well, you never know when that's going to come. And I think some of that was kind of a little bit of a, all right, well, let's roll the dice, let's go in on that. And in some ways, you see teams kind of do that all the time, right? You get to the trade deadline in, baseball or the NFL or wherever it is, and like somebody is going to be like, all right, let's roll the dice. We might have something here. And sometimes it doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, you've kind of put yourself in a real hole because you've traded away draft picks, or you've spent a lot of money, or you put yourself in, salary cap hell or whatever it is. And that can make front offices shy about doing it again, right? Because they'll get to the next time when Brendan Burke comes into the office and says, hey, I really need another midfielder. They're going to say, well, Brendan, last year we brought you a midfielder and you still missed the playoffs. So what are we doing here? It worked, right? They went in and now they got silverware to show for it, and they're going to go to the playoffs, and maybe they'll make a run in the playoffs too. Who knows? And so the next time Brendan Burke goes into that office next summer and says, hey, I really need $50,000 to go out and get another midfielder, or $80,000 or whatever it is, whatever the dollar amount is, it's a lot easier for him to say, trust me, right? This is going to work, right? And I think that was a really critical investment by the team this summer in saying, there's no other, we got to roll the dice on this. We got to go for it. And it's paid off. And now that makes it easier to do it again. It makes it easier to do next year.
And hopefully you sell some more, you sell some more tickets, you sell some more merch. You get, maybe you get a little boost in your season ticket sales. And it's like, okay, well, if we can make some of this money back when we spend it, then it kind of makes, if it makes financial sense as well, then I think that makes everybody happier, just to start to get into like an upward swing, right? As opposed to just feeling like you're stuck in this perpetual downward spiral. But Chris, when Dane gets sold, as someone who doesn't watch every single game week in and week out, right? My original thought was, oh well, they had a nice little run there, but And it's a situation where a club from a bigger league comes in. He's a young guy. They offer what is a big chunk of money. You really can't say no from the team's perspective. Like, you really can't stand in the way. You don't want to get that reputation because then it's harder to get other players to come in the future. Right, so that all makes sense. But as a fan, maybe you can understand the move, but at the same time, what was kind of your initial reaction and other people, was their initial reaction like, oh, okay, we're finally getting something going here, and now this guy's, he's moving off to Minnesota. All right, well, that's probably it.
Yeah, I think yes and no. I mean, I definitely read a lot of comments on all the socials, or like, oh, we're finally doing something, and we get rid of our best player, the guy that scores all of our goals. But the people that I think that really followed the team and knew the players, knew we had a good player that we've been using off the bench, Kyle Edwards, that we would hope would be able to stand in as the main striker and score us a lot of goals. And really, I mean, that's what's happened. I mean, granted, he seems to do better coming off the bench than he does in the starting lineup. But yeah, I mean, he and other members were able to fill in the goals that a lot of us were wondering where they going to come from once we lost Momo. So yeah, I mean, it is even crazier that we've done as well as we have after getting rid of our top goal scorer. Where, I mean, we're still scoring a bunch of goals.
Goals have kept coming, right?
Yeah.
So, it wasn't just a one man, this guy's doing, this guy's doing everything.
Right. And we might actually be doing better because we not necessarily just looking for the big nine in the middle of the box for the goals. Where it's just whoever's getting the ball down the wing, cruising up and or down the middle or something. Just, we don't have to necessarily always play through our striker, which we sort of felt we had to do when Momo was around. And so, I mean, I think the team gelled better as a whole since Momo left. I mean, we loved Momo. We still love Momo. A lot of us still follow him and hope he does well in Minnesota. But yeah, I mean, I think they really gelled once he left. They gelled as an offensive unit.
I think there's a lot of guys in this team that can score goals, right? You look at, Mishi Ngalina is a guy who can score a lot of goals and has scored a lot of goals. And he hasn't really been on fire at any point in his Hartford career, but he's got 14 goals now in all competitions over the last 2 seasons. And obviously you mentioned Kyle Edwards, just set the single season record for goals off the bench in the championship. Jack P, Samuel Cariaga, they both have 5 goals on the season, all competitions. It has kind of come from everywhere. And I think going back to sort of like everything going from 90 to 100%. It's that, when Jordan Scarlett looks up and he wants to put the ball 60 yards down the field, one of those guys is making a run. Maybe it's Mishi, maybe it's Jack P, maybe it's Kyle, maybe it's Samuel Carrick, maybe it's somebody else. But like that is the nature of this team, is everyone is kind of clued into what they're supposed to be doing. The first goal on Saturday, Marlon Harrison looks up and he finds Sebastian Anderson in the box, right? A beautiful ball, right, into the box, and a great touch by Anderson. But that's not a combination that you would have looked at this team at the beginning of the year and said, I think what's going to happen is Marlon Harrison is going to be feeding Sebastian Anderson in the box, right, to score goals for us. And I think that's a kind of a tribute to how, to Chris's point, like how the team is gelled, but how much everybody is on the same page about what they're supposed to be doing and who's supposed to be making the run when the ball is wherever it is on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that goal, that goal was great. I mean, the way that he was able to take that down, get it under control, get separation from the goalkeeper, and then ultimately just kind of slot it in. I mean, that was a really well taken goal, and a great ball as well. But I think you could definitely see that on Saturday night. Again, as someone that doesn't watch them week in and week out, right? You always kind of try and figure out when you're watching TV and watch them a while. What are they trying to do in attack? And if you want to contrast it to, contrast like a team like the Revolution, it's pretty much, everything goes through Carlos Hill, right? If Carlos Hill has a good night, the Revs have a good night. If he doesn't, then they don't. Or if the other teams really kind of key in on him, it kind of slows everything down. And there are plenty of other teams where, they're just over-reliant on this one guy. And if he's not there, everyone else is like, well, what are we supposed to do now? But Hartford, they definitely didn't have that. That wasn't an issue. It was just whoever's open, whoever's making the run, right? If there's nowhere to go, we'll play it back. I think it can work when you have guys that know when to be a little selfish and when not to be a little selfish, and everyone is just looking for the best opportunity. And you're not, Chris, like you said, right? You're not fixated on, well, this is our big time goal scorer, so we've got to get him the ball. We've got to get him his touches. We've got to make sure we feed this guy as much as he needs to be fed. It's been pretty impressive the way that they've been able to spread the goals around. But what about the goal? Siaha gets a lot of attention for a lot of different reasons. But Chris, have the fans really kind of embraced this? Because they're kind of mixing it up again with Sacramento towards the end of Saturday night's game as well. They just don't really seem to take. They don't seem to take shit from anybody. And is this something that the fans have kind of been able to kind of embrace and enjoy?
Yeah, I think for a lot of years, Hartford was picked on as the other team could do whatever they want to us.
Yeah.
And they would do it, and we would just sort of mope and let them do it, and they'd go score goals, and we'd lose and go home. But not anymore. I mean, whether it's Anthony Siaha, whether it's Jordan Scarlett, or whoever, or Marlon Harrison, someone is sticking up and saying enough's enough. And yeah. I mean, I think Anthony Siaha is probably one of the most hated players in the league, I think, at this point, at least for the teams that we play. But yeah, I think the team,
edge though, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, it's scary at times. Because the last thing we want is for one of our guys, especially Siaha, to get a red or get a second yellow or something, and be down a man and then lose him for a game or two. I mean, that was our team in the past, making those stupid plays. I
mean, I think Anthony, in some ways, has been like a kind of an emotional catalyst for this, right? Like he was the first guy who was saying, before the Rhode Island game, like he's tired of hearing the kind of Hartford pathetic stuff. He's tired of hearing the stuff from the Rhode Island fans, the stuff from from the club, from RIFC, from the club on social media. He was the guy. It was the shushing, right, of the fans, at Tidewater that really kind of got everyone's eyes on him. And I think teams need that, right? It's all very well to say, oh, you're professionals, go out there, do your job, but so much of this is emotion, right? You have to like feel it, right, as well. And I think Anthony Siaha is kind of that, in a really like meaningful and important way, is kind of the heart of this team. That is the guy, and like frankly, also I would not want to fight. I mean, wouldn't want to fight any of these guys that all kick my ass. But like Anthony Siaha would just put me in a trash can, right? Like he's just a big guy, and nobody wants to get into it with him. And yeah, I do think he maybe needs to dial it back a little bit. He's got like 15 yellow cards on the season, which is more than a Hartford Athletic player has ever had in a season in history. He's been really, really fortunate to dodge a red card on, I think, 2 occasions, including on Saturday. And he's really got to be careful about that, because you're going to get to the playoffs and one of the refs is going to be watching. They're going to be paying attention because he has this reputation. But at the same time, you don't want him to dial it back very far at all, because so much of what makes him valuable to this team is that he is the guy who is not going to take any shit. He's not like, he's going to stand up for his teammates. He wasn't even the one that got fouled. I think it was Mishi or Njai. One of them got fouled, and he was over there ready to mix it up with whoever was in arm's reach. Like, that's a mentality that you need from a teammate. You need somebody on the roster who is ready to fight, even if you don't really want them to fight. And so I would love him to dial it back like 2%. 2%, hands to the chest, not to the face, and then it's all good. Do all the shushing, do all the jerk off motions that you want. Like, I'm all about that. Everybody complains about it, but they all love it when it's a guy on their team doing it, which I think is the indication that it's probably healthy, for the game. But
yeah, this is the thing. Like, when you have, I think it's a good point that you both brought. Like, when you have a team that just kind of has this history or this reputation as just kind of being a doormat for everybody else, and and teams, I'm sure, just thought, going into this year, even halfway through this season, like, oh, we got Hartford next week. All right, that's whatever. We're not too worried about these guys. Like, there does have to be a mentality switch, right? There does have to be someone that comes in and is just like, hey, look, I don't care about how things have gone in the past or what people think. Like, no, this got to stop. If we're going to be anything, right, we're not going to, and yeah, okay, if you have to go a little over the top every now and then, like, okay, fine. Like, that's what, that's what you got to do. There's a guy that used to play for the Bruins, Brad Marchand. Bruins fans love him. And from my understanding, pretty much everyone else on earth doesn't. Because that's just the type of guy he is. He gets under team's skins. He's just, he's just kind of a shithead, basically. But he's our shithead, so it's okay. And the other 29 teams in the NHL, don't really care for him. But you need something, again, especially with Hartford and the struggle. Like, look, if they're going to be a different type of team, there's got to be guys on the team that are going to take that on board and say, hey, we're not getting pushed around anymore. And it makes for great entertainment. I mean, I think as long as he stays on the right side of the line, which he just about does, all in all, people you want to see a winning product, you want to see a winning team on the field for sure, but you also want to be entertained, and he's going to give you he's going to give you that as well. Yeah, for sure. So it's
we've talked about this before, Thomas, I think on the last roundtable about a little bit about wanting to be entertained, and I don't want to get a jump on that too much if you want to save that as a broader topic for a roundtable in the future, but like, that's why we go, right? Like, I don't go to watch a bunch of guys be like super professional and play the game in like a textbook style. I go to be entertained, and especially at this level, there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be sloppiness, there's going to be guys who are playing with just an incredible sense of passion and pride. And that's awesome. I love it. Let's have more of that, right? Like, if I don't want to see fights, I don't want to see that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm out for. But if the guys are getting heated, that means they're invested in the outcome, right? If they're just up there kind of being like, oh, you put in a hard tackle on my teammate, oh well, do they care? Right? And so there's a balance there. And I think when we get upset about a guy like Siaha, we're like, oh, he's got to dial it back. It's sort of like, well, but it's hard to tell a guy you got to care, but not too much, right?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
we're asking him to walk a very fine line, and I always err a little bit on the side of sometimes guys go overboard. And if they go too far overboard, that's what red cards are for.
Yeah.
And I don't
Yeah.
like to see that. Like I don't want to see that, but like we have a system in the game, right? Guy gets a card, guy gets suspended, then he, dials it back a little bit. Like that's what it's for.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, you guys, you don't want to watch a bunch of robots, right? I mean, especially at this level, these are regular, and I mean, to a certain extent, MLS, but like at this level, like these guys are not making huge, crazy amounts of money. Like they're just, they're just regular guys. And I mean, does it help as a fan base? Like you don't just want to watch 11 guys that just go out there and are just very polite and robotic, and then the game ends and they go, yeah, and then they, and then they shuffle off for a couple weeks.
Yeah, no, yeah. We don't want those boring guys that are just dialing it in for the game and just no. I mean, we want them to show their personality in how they play and how they perform on the pitch, and how they interact with the crowd and the fans. I mean, I mean, we want them to show their personality, and for some of them, like Siaha, he shows it. Other guys are more reserved. But yeah, I mean, we don't want some robotic guy that's just gonna keep his head down and just dribble and whatever. And no, I mean, we're there. I mean, we know they're not getting that huge, messy paycheck that to play the game. I mean, this is their livelihood. I mean, they're hoping to get to a higher level. So yeah, I mean. We want them to feel part of our community, and by showing their personality and everything, they've shown it this year. In the past years, we've had that too with some players, but I think this year it's been a little more so.
Yeah, I mean the celebration for the third goal last night. I mean, the whole bench guys are sprint. I mean that Yeah. Obviously, yeah, okay. It's a late goal. It's a big winner, but again, that's more like something that you would see. I remember when I used to work with a men's college team, and there was just that real togetherness with the group where if they got a late goal, you just see 40 guys just like piling onto the field, and I do think that is one thing that people do need to try and keep in mind. It's like at the USL level, these guys are really like. They know they've got to stick around for as long as they possibly. Like everything that they're on, 1-year contracts, 2-year contracts. I think they all know like there's a lot, there's a lot at stake for them. So I think it's understandable for them to show that on the field, and like you said, have a little bit more of their personality come out because for a lot of them, it's gonna be a short run. They'll be a pro for 7-8 years if they're lucky, and you can't retire on USL Championship wages after 8 years.
Yeah, I think you talk about that goal, Jonathan Jimenez scoring that. Like, I think he's a guy who hasn't quite fully clicked for this season, and he said as much after the game. The goals assists haven't been there for him this year. But he's stuck with it, and he's still there, and he came in, and he was in the right place at the right time, and he delivered. And I think in that you saw both his like personal relief that like this happened for him, but all his teammates also being happy that this guy who's a part of their family, who some of them live with, right? Like that's the nature of this league. Some of these guys live together, especially the younger ones. That is such a close-knit group that it's not just, oh, isn't it nice that JJ scored? It's they're fucking excited for that, right? It means something. And as Chris said, like all of that personality, his teammates' personality, everyone's loving it. And that's like you get good and bad with that. And if we can't filter that out, right? We want to have as little bad as we can, but there's just a reality to asking these guys to perform and to be emotional and to pour themselves into this game for our enjoyment. And then to kind of wag our fingers when we're like, oh, but not like that. It just feels a little, I don't know. I always feel a little gross about that. It's like, you want to be entertained or not, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing too. Like, that's what I have really enjoyed about the USL in general this year. I mean, I think now, my wife and I have been to 8. We've been to 8 USL games this year, and all pretty good time because again, there's smaller stadiums, people are close to the field, but there's more like I feel like there's definitely more of an attachment, and there's more of like, these are just regular. I mean, look, we're all just regular people, but like, you know what I mean? Like, these guys aren't on obscene amounts of money. None of them, $1 million a year. Forget it. They're not even close. There's a half dozen guys in the Revs that are making $1 million a year. Hard to believe, some of them. But there's no one approaching $1 million a year playing for a USL team. So I think that's definitely been part of the enjoyment is the teams do feel kind of closely knit. They do feel more in touch with the community that they go out and play for. So it's been it's been great. Again, I haven't gone to all 4 places this year. But look, to wrap up here, let's look ahead to the future. We talked about Brian Clough a little bit before we started recording. Brian Clough always talked about the importance of winning a trophy early on in the season, then kind of setting the tone for going on and winning the league or winning the European Cup, the Champions League at a later point. So put a lot of value in whatever small little Tim Pot championship. It didn't matter. Getting that success early in the year, he felt was really, really important to what would come later in the year. So this is already a good season for sure, right? They've lifted a trophy and they've made the playoffs. But where do the two of you think, this thing can go? How far do you realistically think they can go? Considering that they're probably going to get at least one game at home, and they've been arguably the best team in the league for the last 3 months.
Yeah, I definitely think this team can go all the way. I mean, I mean the way this team has played some of the better clubs, whether it's Sacramento, whether it's Tulsa, out west. I mean, we tied Tulsa. We just beat Sacramento back-to-back weeks. So, I mean, that upcoming Louisville game, and we'll get a chance to see how well they are there. But I really think that this team could go all the way, and especially with the home playoff game, if that does happen, and then you never know. I mean, upset could happen. I mean, Louisville could lose first round, or Charleston could lose first round, and then we can end up with another home playoff game. So yeah, I mean I legitimately have confidence that this team can do it, can go all the way.
I think for me the biggest thing is this team knows what they want to do, right? And Brendan Burke said this after the game on Saturday. We're no good if we just sit back. We have to get after every single game, and the players understand that. And that gives me confidence that whatever game they're going into, whether it's Charleston, who just today obliterated Colorado Springs like 5-0 in a rescheduled game, or if it's Louisville, who have been the best team in the league over the course of the season, that they're going to approach those games with knowing what they have to do to win, and right now they are able to execute that. Now, sometimes it goes against you, right? You look at the Colorado Springs game a couple of weeks ago for Hartford. They probably could have lost that game like 4-2, right? Based on the chances Colorado Springs had. So they got the bounces. And some days you don't get them. Some days the other team converts their chances, or they get the lucky breaks, and it just doesn't go your way. That's the nature of this game. So there's always that factor too, right? Charleston will be more clinical. Louisville will probably be more clinical. But they know what they're trying to do. Hartford knows what they want to do. They know what makes them good. They know what they do well. They know what they don't do well. And they work really hard in every game to get to the place where they're the ones doing the things that they do well, and they're trying to deny the team the opportunity to do things they do well. And I have a great deal of confidence that they can execute that. And maybe it won't go their way. They'll go to Charleston, you know, Juan David Torres will do something crazy and score from 30 yards out, and that'll be it, right? Or Aaron Malloy will just be the best player on the pitch, and it is what it is. But I do feel like they have a legitimate shot, against Charleston, against Louisville, against whoever comes out of the Western Conference, whether it's Tulsa or Sacramento again, or San Antonio or whoever. They can legitimately win any of those games. And I don't think there has been no time in Hartford Athletics history where you could say, I legitimately believe that they could win a game against any team in the league. And that alone, right, to say yeah, maybe Louisville will beat us, but I would take our chances in that game, is incredible. And to your point about Brian Clough, the other thing that's unique about this season is there hasn't been that other trophy for USL clubs to win before, right? You look at, it's been the Open Cup, which, okay, Sacramento made a really good run to the final a couple of years ago, but in all honesty, it's just been the regular season. That's all there's been, right? And to have the Jägermeister Cup, to have that League Cup during the season is really, I think, going to change the calculus for a lot of teams. And we'll see, I think, for Hartford, they do feel like they're buoyed by that. They have confidence now that this all can work out and it can take them to the mountaintop. And so could they make a run in the playoffs? Sure. Will we see in the future, I think, other teams saying, we should take a run at the USL Cup. We should not sandbag this competition and focus on the league. We should target it because it can buoy us. I think we will absolutely see that in the future. And that's huge development for this league. It's a thing that has not really been the case for this tier of American soccer before, and I think it's really going to transform how teams approach these competitions in a really positive way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, guys, this has been a lot of fun to talk about. It's been a pretty remarkable, turnaround. Obviously, the two of you have enjoyed it. I'm sure many of other people have. But if you haven't had a chance to check this team out, for sure, the Rev season's is all done next Saturday. So definitely take the opportunity to check out Hartford and see how they do. But look, really appreciate both of you coming on. Opportunity to talk about a team that is doing well. Not that long after we had talked about them not doing well. And Oliver, the monthly guest on the round table, the Hartford Athletic representative, is no longer the punching bag for everybody else. So they've been able to throw some punches back in the other direction. So look, great stuff, and we'll have to have you guys back on again in the off season, and we can talk about how this whole thing finished up. Chris, real quick, if people are interested in checking out the Bonanza, if they want to hang out with you guys and they come down to a game, where can they get more info about the supporters club group?
Yeah, we have we're on all the socials, whether it's Instagram, we're on Facebook, we have a webpage, bonanzahartford.com. So if they wanted to join up, they can do that there. At games, if you want to come tailgate with us, definitely, the more the merrier. Definitely come say hi. We're in one of the front parking lots. We're usually grilling something, drinking beer, having fun, listening to music, and then in the stands. Come see us in the stands too. We're loud, we sing, we stand, we support our boys.
Yeah, no, it was great. You guys really kept things going through the whole game on Saturday night, and it definitely adds a lot to the atmosphere. And Oliver, where can people follow along with you? Of course, you are, a member of the Blazing Musket, where we cover Hartford Athletic arguably better than anybody else. So, how can people follow along with you as this Athletic heads to the playoffs?
I appreciate that our coverage is arguably better than everyone else's, Thomas. But yeah, I was on the Blazing Musket, game previews, recaps, and then occasionally on the podcast on the Roundtable once a month, and frequently still shitposting on Reddit about the team. So,
all right. Well, again, thank you both for coming on. Thank you for listening to this week's show. We will be back next week. And of course, you can look forward to the roundtable, which is always a good time later on in October, early November. So if you have not liked and subscribed to the show yet, please do. If you have any feedback, we would love to hear any and all feedback that you have about the show. Hopefully you've been enjoying it. Hopefully you continue to enjoy it. And we will see you all back here next week.